I speak of promised lands, soil as soft as mama's hands, running water standing still, endless fields of chamomile and daffodils, rice under black beans. I walked into Apple with cracked screens and told prophetic stories of freedom, found warmth in a black queen for when I get cold like Nat King, I'm doing the dad thing. I speak of wondrous, unfamiliar lessons from childhood, make you remember how to smile good. My name is Lauren. I work in higher education, and I like hip hop. Hip hop has been traditionally a reflection of Black identity and Blackness, and centers the experiences of people who tend to get left out of mainstream narratives. I opened with lyrics from the reprise of Chance the Rapper's song, Blessings, which was featured on his beautiful, iconic, and magnificent project, Coloring Book. It evokes happy reminiscings and hopeful ideas and speaks to who Chance was at that moment. It speaks to who many of us are today. When we think about hip hop, I think we limit ourselves in the capacity which we do because it gives us new lenses to explore the world around us. And when we go through these processes of thinking about what we love, I begin to wonder about how we can better incorporate it in the ways in which we learn and the ways in which we educate. When I think about hip hop too, I think not only about these stories, but about the ways in which storytelling has roots in the African tradition of the African griots, who use storytelling to teach their communities and tribes. And that's where emceeing, which is the art of rapping, comes from. So when you think about it, storytelling, education, and hip hop are all very similar because they move communities closer to this idea of freedom. Whether it be freedom to choose a career or a major, freedom to decide the kind of lives you want to live, or the freedom to simply exist safely and in peace, everyone, everywhere wants some kind of freedom. In a different song, Chance the Rapper asks, "Who are you to tell me I don't want you the way flesh wants freedom?" Because for some of us, freedom is not just something we'd like to have, it's something we yearn for. In his album 2014, Forest Hills Drive, J. Cole asks, "Do you want to be free? Do you want to be happy? Free to look back and say, look where I came. Look how far I've done came." They say that dreams come true, and when they do, that there's a beautiful thing. I love J. Cole, y'all. And so when we think about it, I began to wonder when I got into this field of education, how I could use hip hop to better connect to students and engage them in that. Because when we think about higher education, we've positioned it as a means to get freedom, at least in an economic sense. We look at it as a sort of passport for people to get opportunities and careers. But when educators are thinking about education, we're noticing that in a lot of ways, traditional methods of reaching students and engaging them don't always work very well. We're also noticing that, yes, while students are going to college, and they're learning how to approach these various career paths, they're also racking up thousands of dollars in debt and leaving these places without having put much thought into who they are. We have a whole generation of college students who don't know how to define themselves for themselves. And when we think about education, that too is an important lesson to learn. And then I think more about the different things you can learn about yourself. And I think about dreams and goals and aspirations. And I love asking students about their dreams and goals and aspirations. But what I've noticed is when I ask college-age adults about their dreams and goals and what they want for their lives, it's very different from when I ask young children. Because young children dream so big. And in comparison, college-age adults, as young as they are, dream so small. It's almost as if reality and their dreams have been, because of reality, their dreams have been watered down and dismissed so much that they've forgotten how. And so I use hip hop to try to re-engage them in that process. Because we know it works. Because educators and researchers around the country are using what we call hip hop pedagogy to better engage students in classrooms all over. But also because the students are already doing it themselves. Groups like OU Unheard use the song Glory by Common and John Legend to attract people not only to the work they were doing before and after members of SAE fraternities sang a hateful song on a bus, but also to the information they were giving. A fierce group of women of color activists called the Revolutionary Baddies used Solange Knowles' recent album, A Seat at the Table, to celebrate and uplift and support Black women and also teach women of color how to engage in self-care because they felt like it had just been one of those weeks and it's what the community needed. By using that album and because of the way it resonated with people of color, particularly Black women, by the time people got to the event, they already felt supported. They already felt engaged and they felt love. So when I go back to these dreams and these goals that I'm sitting there talking to my students about, I try to start off just by getting them to dream a little bigger than they normally would. Because they've narrowed themselves down. And so we have to have conversations about, even though you think that these people who have made it have always made it, they too had experiences and dreams that somebody said weren't realistic. Like Biggie, when he said, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper, Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, Rap Attack, Mr. Magic, Marlon Mall. And then once we've talked about dreaming, we talk about the fact that you can't just follow them, you have to chase them. And I think about Nicki Minaj's verse on Kanye West's song Monster, where she said, you could be the queen, you could be the king, but watch the queen conquer. Because you can't just go after them, you have to attack them with tenacity. And then I bring it back to the classroom. When you're in the classroom, you're looking at it as a box that needs to be checked. I just have to get through this class, get through this week, get through this semester, and then I'll graduate. But when you start thinking about the ways in which what you're learning in the classroom can supplement whatever we've decided your goals and dreams are up here, it takes that from a box that needs to be checked to a step toward a goal that's important to you. And then the students begin engaging in that even more. And then once we've talked about that, I explained that it's not enough to just chase them. You also have to be willing to sacrifice for those dreams and goals too. And I think about Meek Mill's song, Dreams and Nightmares. I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this, so I had to grind like that, to shine like this. And throughout the song, he discusses the ways in which he has sacrificed for these dreams and goals, and he has no plans of letting it slip through his fingers. Ill-advised Twitter beef with Drake notwithstanding, but, hey, to each his own. And then finally, I have conversations about how, unfortunately, sometimes chasing your dreams is lonely. Because you might think that there are people all over that will have your back and support you, but you'll find that everyone doesn't. But if it's important to you, you owe it to yourself to pursue it anyway. And I think about Wale's song from his mixtape, More About Nothing, where he says, and to all those who hate it, please continue to inspire the fire that is my rededication to greatness. And I do this because when I look at Black students in the Black community, I see a need for dreamers. Because when dreamers learn how to turn their dreams into action, it produces vision. And vision gets us ever closer to this elusive concept of freedom. Now, I know what some of you are saying, but Lauren, hip-hop's so vulgar. What about the language and the way they talk about women and the sex? And those are valid critiques. I would argue that hip-hop is not the only genre of music that discusses vulgar topics. I remember a song by Willie Nelson about something about roll me up and smoke me when I die. I don't really know that song. But also, I argue that hip hop is a reflection of society and is almost human in its imperfections. And when educators don't shy away from it, the music offers up these topics on a plate so that we can tackle these issues of misogyny, of homophobia, of drug abuse, and sex. But if we're gonna tackle sex, we also need to tackle reproductive care and reproductive rights, but that's a whole nother conversation. Somebody needs to have it. Thank you. But when we tackle these things, we can help students digest how they themselves internalize them and perpetuate them. And hopefully then help students learn how to dismantle them. Because when we dismantle these systems that don't serve any of us, we move our communities even closer still to these concepts of freedom. By positioning hip hop as an additional lens for students to engage and make meaning out of their experiences, it allows us to help them make better sense of the world around them. Not by allowing their lives to imitate art, but by finding the art that speaks to their lives. Because we need students who can come alive in the learning process. Because it helps bring authenticity to their experiences in the classroom and makes them more real. So dress it up and make it real for them, whatever that freaking means. Thank you.